Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Welcome back, Flight Crew. Today we are really finally wrapping up our Haunted Mansion episodes in the newest Treasured Attraction series. We've had a little break between the series with some other content, but we wanted to go ahead and wrap this series up before moving on to some other fun things that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. Today, we are going to get into a few different topics surrounding this ghostly estate, including holiday overlays, the films inspired by this movie, its cultural legacy, and some personal stories as well, of course. If you have missed the first 3 episodes of this review of the Haunted Mansion, you can go back and listen. Today's episode won't give anything away that we have talked about previously, and the topics don't really overlap either, so it's easy for you to go back and listen to the others after you listen to this one. So, Dad, are you ready to dive back into the Haunted Mansion?
I'm always ready to dive into the Haunted Mansion. Let's talk a
Okay.
little bit about the holiday overlays. The success of the Haunted Mansion led to the creation of similar attractions at other Disney parks. Before we get into the order of opening of this attraction and its sister versions across the globe, I did want to briefly bounce back to the OG mansion at Disneyland to talk about its holiday overlay, because we will talk about other overlays at the international parks here in just a minute with each of the other iconic attractions. The seasonal offering, Haunted Mansion Holiday, features characters from The Nightmare Before Christmas, like Jack and Sally. The attraction remains a staple of Disney parks, celebrated for its blend of humor and horror, and continues to evolve with updates and enhancements. This overlay debuted in Disneyland in 2001, and it's unlike anything else in the Haunted Mansion family. Rather than telling a standalone story, Haunted Mansion Holiday is explicitly a crossover sequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas. Chronologically, it takes place shortly after the events of the film. Jack Skellington, having already tried and failed to run a Christmas his own way, stumbles across a new location, the Haunted Mansion, home to 999 happy haunts. And once again, Jack decides to improve things. Jack sees the Haunted Mansion's gloomy residents and decides they deserve a holiday of their own. So he and the residents of Halloween Town transform the mansion into a warped Christmas wonderland, stuffed with Jack's idea of festive decorations, dangerous toys, and cheer. The result isn't Christmas, and it isn't Halloween. It's both at the same time. For the moment guests arrive, the mansion's facade is completely transformed. Jack-o'-lanterns, candles, wreaths, and countdown clock to Christmas Eve dominate the exterior. Jack's sleigh crash lands on the roof, his twisted Christmas recipe dangling from it, while Oogie Boogie and Sandy Claus imagery creeps into the grounds. Once inside, the ghost host returns, now speaking in rhyme, setting the stage as making Christmas plays in a grim, distorted style.
The stretching room is entirely reimagined. Instead of the classic portraits, stained glass windows depict innocent Christmas scenes until they violently shatter, revealing monstrous hybrid toys and ghosts. The ceiling itself transforms into a giant jack-o'-lantern grin before Jack Skellington, as Sandy Claus, crashes through and shouts, "Happy holidays, everyone." From there, guests are launched into a full Nightmare Before Christmas retelling, filtered through the Haunted Mansion's layout. Every classic scene is reinterpreted. The hallway of portraits becomes a transformation sequence as Zero flies from frame to frame, turning Christmas imagery into Halloween chaos. The conservatory features a vampire teddy bear trapping a man inside a gift wrapped coffin. The corridor of doors becomes louder, more aggressive, and more dangerous, capped off by a man eating wreath. In the seance room, Madame Leota recites the 13 days of Christmas, summoning gifts from Halloween Town. The ballroom becomes a ghostly Christmas party centered around a massive decaying tree, complete with spiders, skull ornaments, and a ghost train circling its base. The attic overflows with Jack's cursed presents, set to "What's This?" before the ride explodes into its snowy finale.
The graveyard is completely transformed into a snowy hybrid of Christmas Town and Halloween Town. Jack greets guests as Sandy Claus. Zero floats nearby, and the ghosts celebrate in full macabre harmony. The ride ends not with hitchhiking ghosts, but with Oogie Boogie, now Oogie Claus, running a twisted game of Halloween Christmas roulette in the exit crypt. Lock, shock, and barrel may even jump out to laugh at your misfortune before you disembark. Sally bids you farewell as Jack's sleigh passes across the moon, promising, hurry back, hurry back. Haunted Mansion Holiday has evolved significantly since 2001. The original soundtrack by Gordy Goodwin leaned heavily on twisted versions of grim, grinning ghosts. In its second year, a new score by John Debney fully integrated the songs from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Since then, the ride's audio has remained largely unchanged, becoming iconic in its own right.
One of the most beloved traditions is the gingerbread house in the ballroom, made from real gingerbread and redesigned every single year. Each version reflects a new theme, character, or anniversary milestone, turning the ballroom into an actual Easter egg hunt for returning fans. Over the years, Haunted Mansion Holiday has seen new animations in the stretching room, rotating effects in the portrait hallway, a permanently changed exit crypt starring Oogie Boogie, hidden Easter eggs that come and go. And notably, 2020 was the only year that the overlay didn't appear due to the park's COVID-19 closure. Interestingly, the original idea for Haunted Mansion Christmas overlay was not The Nightmare Before Christmas at all. It was Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. That concept was ultimately scrapped because it was considered too wholesome and sentimental for the Haunted Mansion's tone. Jack Skellington, on the other hand, was the perfect fit. Love it or hate it, the Haunted Mansion Holiday is one of the boldest creative risks that Disney has ever taken with a legacy attraction. It doesn't just decorate the mansion, it rewrites it, temporarily replacing 50 years of lore with something louder, darker, and deeply divisive. Haunted Mansion Holiday remains one of the most talked about overlays in Disney history because every year it asks the same question. Is this a brilliant reinvention, or should the ghosts have been left alone? So, Dad, what is your opinion on this Nightmare Before Christmas overlay? Neither one of us have actually experienced it. I know Regan has, but do you think it's a worthwhile overlay, or is it one that you're really just like not that into?
Well, I give Disney credit for doing the overlay. We know, my son, your brother, loves it, but
Mm-hmm.
he really liked the movie. I think if you really liked the movie, and you're a Tim Burton fan, I think it's great. I've seen that movie a few times. I like it. Is it one of my favorites? No, it's a little weird, but Tim
Yeah.
Burton's been kind of known to do some, kind of just strange, unique, creative movies, of course. So I like it, but I think there's a lot of fans of that movie, and I think a lot of people that maybe didn't even see the movie that have gone to the Disneyland version, of course, during the holidays there, uh, have kind of embraced it and like, okay, it's changed for a few months. This is cool. It's something a little different, and they've done a real good job with the way they have reinvented that. So, yeah, it's fine. Do I really want to see it at our haunted mansion? At the end of the day, I guess I really don't care. If they wanted to put it in our haunted mansion, go for it. It's not a full time thing, right? It's a few months, and then it's done. So, yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think for people who are big fans of the movie, it is definitely a very cool overlay. I like that it's not just random animatronics. It really has a story kind of throughout and is very well done. I also love the gingerbread house and how that changes every year. Obviously, we see a lot of different gingerbread things over in the Florida resorts in the parks. And also, I believe in Epcot, they've been doing a Spaceship Earth gingerbread the last couple of years too. And so that's really cool. I liked watching the behind the scenes of how they did this and transformed this attraction on Disney Plus years ago. That's very neat to watch. If y'all haven't watched that, it's worthwhile, even as someone who isn't the biggest Nightmare Before Christmas fan. But it is up pretty long. So it surprised me when I was looking it up just now to see how long it stays up. It actually this year went up August 22nd and stayed until January 12th.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea. I thought it was kind of maybe a week before Halloween and then ran through Christmas and then they took it down. But they must be doing that for the Halloween parties, I'm sure. Right.
I think so, yeah. But I think as somebody who obviously we don't get out to Disneyland all the time, it's like not a place that's easily accessible. And if that was your one time getting out to Disneyland and you didn't get to see the classic Haunted Mansion, that would be kind of disappointing. So it's something that I've thought about as we plan trips for the future to Disneyland. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. Like when you get to go back eventually, I'd rather have you get to see the classic Haunted Mansion than this. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
be a bummer for someone to want to go there because it's the first one that they did. Uh, and even Walt Disney saw some of the ideas before he died of what some of the things that were going to happen in the Haunted Mansion, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, that would be a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's neat. I wish it was a little less time. I do think you're right, though. I think it's based off of their, Halloween party, different things, and their Halloween decor. So that's probably why. But yeah, it's just definitely different than having it be the classic if you were to go for that first time. What do you think about the idea for the Charles Dickens overlay that was pitched originally? I had never heard that before until researching for this episode, and I thought that was really cool.
I never heard it either until I read your research.
Yeah.
Uh, I love Charles Dickens. I love A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite holiday stories. I have the original book with all the way it was written originally. I read through it every Christmas. I've had it for over 30 some years. I really love that story. So if they would have did something like that, I would have been, it would have been awesome for us Charles Dickens fans, I guess. But I think it maybe not would it probably wouldn't fit as well as the Nightmare Before Christmas. I think they probably did the right thing, even though it would have been fun to see kind of the concept of how they were going to do the Dickens overlay. I would love to see that, just the way the Imagineers maybe pitched it. Being a big, Christmas Carol fan, Charles Dickens fan. So, yeah, I definitely think it would be great, but I don't think we're ever going to see that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have been a really cool idea, and I would prefer the Charles Dickens like Christmas Carol kind of overlay instead of Nightmare Before Christmas. But I do agree with you. I think obviously Nightmare Before Christmas is already Disney IP, so the cost was nothing versus they probably would have had to pay a pretty penny to get to use the Charles Dickens name. I know they've done a Christmas Carol like the Jim Carrey version on Disney Plus and things like that, but yeah, that would be cool if they decided to bring something like that to the Disney World Park or even for a shorter amount of time, like just for the Christmas season. So not quite as long as like the Halloween and Christmas season like they do at Disneyland, but I was very interested to hear about that because yeah, like you said, it'd be very neat to hear what their concept pitch was for that for sure. So Tokyo Disneyland has its own take on a holiday overlay. Now, it does have some Disneyland similarities, including that every year Tokyo Disneyland overlays the attraction with Haunted Mansion Holiday Nightmare, inspired by the Disneyland version. Interestingly, this overlay was originally intended for Walt Disney World, but the idea was sent to Tokyo when it wasn't implemented at the Orlando park. From the moment that guests approach the mansion, the facade has been completely redecorated. Jack-o'-lanterns, candles, and Jack's sleigh perched on the roof set the tone. Inside, a grim rendition of Making Christmas plays as the ghost host begins narrating the chaos unfolding in the mansion. A picture of Jack Skellington gradually shifts into him dressed as Sandy Claus, inviting guests into the ride. The octagonal portrait gallery, usually filled with classic stretching portraits, is transformed. Stained glass paintings of innocent Christmas scenes shatter dramatically, revealing Halloween Town's twisted influences. With a thunderclap, Jack's face appears in the cupola, shouting Happy Holidays, setting the tone for what's to come.
Guests board their doom buggies and begin the tour. Along the way, Jack and his dog Zero greet visitors from above, while paintings of Halloween Town characters watch their every move. In the library, Zero has created a spinning Christmas tree of books wrapped in garlands, while the staring busts remain ever watchful. Next, the music room features Sally listening to the vampire teddy bear play the piano with increasing urgency. Upstairs, insects shiver in fear inside cages labeled to Oogie, and Oogie's shadow dances on the moon, transforming into a Christmas tree. The endless hallway is filled with bone decorations, and the conservatory, possessed flowers form a ghostly choir. A man struggles inside a Christmas wrapped coffin with the vampire teddy bear hammering nails in place, while a monstrous man eating wreath lurks above. The grandfather clock chimes 13, and a note reads, To Leota, 13 special gifts for you, Sandy Claus. In the seance room, Madame Leota chants the 13 days of Christmas, with tarot cards floating around and a zombified nutcracker echoing her incantations. The ballroom becomes a ghostly winter celebration. A snow-covered cake mirror, a snow-covered cake mirrors Halloween Town's Spiral Hill, and a massive dead Christmas tree glows with a skull and a jack-o'-lantern ornaments. Ghosts waltz through the tree as the ghostly organist plays Kidnap the Santa Claus. In
That's
the
a
attic, Jack's cursed presents overflow. Jack in the boxes pop out to scare guests, and a snake has swallowed the naughty and nice list. The graveyard merges Halloween Town and Christmas with snow-covered landscapes, glowing jack-o'-lanterns, ghosts riding bicycles with Jack's Bonadier, and giant ice angels plays horns overhead. Jack and Zero greet guests at the gates, creating a surreal, festive atmosphere.
Finally, guests entered the exit crypt where Lock, Shock, and Barrel peek playfully from presents, and Sally waves as Jack departs across the moon. The ghost host warns followers, gilded mirrors reveal hidden surprises, and a jazzy ghost tune plays as guests disembark, leaving with the perfect memory of a macabre holiday. Haunted Mansion Holiday Nightmare in Tokyo Disneyland is a unique blend of Halloween and Christmas, capturing the mischievous, spooky, and whimsical spirit of Jack Skellington while fully transforming the Haunted Mansion experience. This version of the overlay does not super surprise me because Tokyo Disneyland was the version of the ride when we talked about it in the last episode that we did on the Haunted Mansion in this series. We said it most mirrored the Walt Disney World version of the ride. So doing a Nightmare Before Christmas that mirrors Disneyland seems probable and wasn't that super unexpected. Dad, what do you think about this overlay being brought to Tokyo?
I think it's pretty cool because I'm sure I'm just sure the Japanese people probably thought it was pretty cool. They seem to
Yeah.
kind of really dig a lot of the I'll call it the Western stuff. You know, they love the many of them. I know from a fact I've just seen a lot of things over the years. They love our Western cowboy movies and our music, our rock music, and all the groups and everything. So a lot of the stuff that's faddish and fun in the States, they seem to really enjoy that. So if it's something that was big here, especially something that was tied with Disney, because I know Disney, as we know, is huge in Japan. The following there, I think they would just really enjoy it. So I think it's great that they brought it there and kind of did their own twist to it.
Yeah, I like that it's not a carbon copy. I like that they did something a little bit different and made it their own thing instead of it being, just the holiday doing the holiday nightmare. I think that was definitely a really cool twist. I agree. So in the early 2000s, Disneyland Paris actually introduced a special seasonal event called the Phantom Wedding. Rather than overlaying the ride itself like Haunted Mansion Holiday in the US or Tokyo, this celebration focused almost entirely on the exterior of the mansion and its tragic story. A massive scrim was draped over the entire building, and at night, projections recreated Melanie Ravenswood's wedding, turning the house into a ghostly stage for her doomed ceremony. The effect leaned heavily into gothic horror and melancholy, reinforcing Phantom Manor's identity as a tragic love story rather than a playful ghost romp. It was a very European approach to Halloween, atmospheric, story-driven, and somber instead of comedic or festive. There were no pumpkins and no jokes, just a bride, a haunted house, and a wedding that never ended. By 2005, the Phantom Wedding was retired and replaced by seasonal offerings, and Phantom Manor has never received a full ride overlay like the Haunted Mansion Holiday. Still, that early Halloween celebration remains a fan favorite example of how Phantom Manor doubled down on story instead of spectacle, even for seasonal events. So, what do you think about this Paris version not changing the attraction per se, but changing the decor for holiday?
I like the idea that different countries are kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
If, you can just carbon copy this stuff everywhere. And Disney really didn't do that. There's a few attractions at all the parks that are similar, same, or maybe the Dumbo ride or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
to take something like the Haunted Mansion and the Phantom Manor and just doing their own twist to it that kind of ties in with maybe with their culture a little bit more, I think that's very acceptable to do. And it would be fun to see those changes if we ever go to those places, maybe someday.
So now we're going to move a little bit into the Haunted Mansion films. So Dad, why don't you kick us off by starting to talk a little bit about a the first Haunted Mansion film that came out in 2003.
Yes, The Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. I have the
Yeah.
DVD, and it's
We do
blow the
too.
dust off it. I know I went to that. I think we went to that together, didn't we? Uh,
Yes.
we went to that when you were just a young lady,
Yeah.
and Regan was just a young man. But I couldn't wait to see it because I don't. It's the first time they had a Haunted Mansion movie, right? So it was like, oh, okay, this should be really great. Uh, but anyway, if you mention the Haunted Mansion to Disney fans today, chances are you'll get a much warmer response than you would have back in 2003. But when this movie first creaked its way into theaters, critics weren't exactly lining up to sing grim, grinning ghosts. So how did a film that was critically panned, often softly at the box office, and seemed destined for the graveyard of forgotten Disney experiments, end up becoming a Halloween staple with a genuine cult following? Released on November 26th, 2003. I find that kind of strange. It's like a month after Halloween. Like,
Yeah, like
huh?
a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, Halloween movie. That's
Yeah.
kind of strange. But anyway, I digress. The Haunted Mansion was Disney's attempt to bring one of the most beloved theme park attractions to the big screen. Director Rob Minkoff, fresh off The Lion King and written by David Birnbaum, who would later have penned Elf, the film starred Eddie Murphy as a workaholic realtor, Jim Evers. On paper, a dream team. In reality, the critics weren't impressed. I know that by pulling Eddie Murphy in, they thought, oh, we got a winner here. Of course, by then, even though I don't know, I'm not a huge Eddie Murphy fan. I know he was a huge comedic hit. Saturday Night Live and all the movies he did back in the '80s. I mean, he was a superstar, and he is a superstar. I get that, but
Yeah.
I think it fell short having him in this movie. That's my own opinion. I think they could have picked maybe someone that might have worked a little bit better, but hey, that was a long time ago. The film currently sits at 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Ouch. With many reviewers calling it neither scary nor funny enough to justify its existence. But here's the thing, it still made over 180 million worldwide on a $90 million budget. So they doubled it. That's pretty impressive. But
Yeah.
I think about the movie, I think, what? I really have trouble believing that. But again, it says the audience, it grew, right? Just like the Christmas Story. It was a bomb at the box office in 1983, and everybody who's ever seen Ralphie and the Red Ryder BB gun, one of my favorite Christmas movies,
Mm-hmm.
it has become a cult classic and has made millions and millions of dollars in the last probably 30 years. It's become very popular. So it's a similar type of thing, I think, to some degree.
Definitely.
What's fascinating about it, The Haunted Mansion, is that beneath the family friendly comedy is a surprisingly dark and emotional story. In the 1800s, Edward Gracie, owner of Gracie Manor, falls in love with Elizabeth Henshaw, a multiracial woman. His butler, Ramsley, disapproves, both out of a rigid loyalty to the family legacy and a deeply rooted prejudice. Ramsley poisons Elizabeth, forges a letter to make it appear she died by suicide, and it manipulates Gracie into believing she abandoned him. Gracie, devastated, kills himself. That tragic act curses the mansion and its residents for a century, trapping them between the worlds until Gracie and Elizabeth are reunited.
Fast forward to modern day when Jim and Sarah Evers, along with their two kids, arrive at the mansion for what Jim thinks is a real estate deal. Sarah just happens to look exactly like Elizabeth, and suddenly this spooky house has opinions about destiny. One thing the film absolutely nails is its reverence for the attraction. This isn't just a movie with the same name, it's packed with references for ride fans. Madame Leota, the hitchhiking ghost, the singing bus, the ballroom dancers, the caretaker and his dog, the breathing door, and the portrait gallery. Even the music plays tribute. Composer Mark Mancina reimagined the ride's iconic organ music into a sweeping orchestral score, complete with pipe organ, choir, and harpsichord to give it that grand gothic feel. And yes, Welcome Foolish Mortals even makes an appearance voiced by Corey Burton in tribute to the legendary Paul Frees. Production designer John Muir, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, blended the Disneyland version's antebellum style with elements from the Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland, creating a massive palatial structure that feels alive. Hidden eyes were placed in the wallpaper, metalwork, and architecture, so the house always feels like it's watching you. Inside, nearly everything was built on sound stages. Massive rooms, towering ceilings, and practical sets filled with dust, cobwebs, and eerie antiques. One standout piece, Captain Nemo's red couch from Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, a deep cut nod to Disney history and another nod to this movie woven into the Haunted Mansion story. As we talked about either the last episode of this or the episode before, now I can't remember. We've in one of these episodes we talked about how the organ in the Disneyland version of the attraction houses the organ from the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea movie as well. So that movie keeps coming back around. Did you know this about the couch? I didn't know this until I was doing research on this.
Again, uh, due to your wonderful research, I'm learning something about the haunted mansion. Some of these things I just never knew. So no, I didn't know that.
So legendary effects artist Rick Baker led the creature design, and Disney actually encouraged him to not hold back, especially with the mausoleum zombies. Thin actors were molded into full body undead suits and even attended zombie school to perfect their movements. The ghosts were filmed against blue screens wearing reflective paint so they could appear translucent and ethereal when composited into film. Now, I want to say on the DVD or somewhere, we saw some behind the scenes thing about them dressing up the zombies and about how they did the blue screen. Is that on the DVD?
Yeah, that's the one of the extras on the DVD that you can go and it shows you how they created all the graveyard effects and Rick Baker is one of the top was one of the I don't know if he's still doing effects now. He's a little older now, but I saw a whole documentary on him how he got his start and everything and doing makeup, mostly known for his monster makeup and effects that he does. But yeah, but the bonus section of the DVD does have all the a bunch of background information on how they did all the behind the scenes stuff and all the makeup and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something I miss about like streaming versus old DVDs. All the behind the scenes stuff. I was definitely one of those people that loved the behind the scenes or blooper reels or all those silly things that you don't always get on streaming service. So I miss those things for sure.
The graveyard scene alone, shot as a continuous moving sequence, took days of motion controls, matte painting, and compositing to pull off. And Madame Leota, Jennifer Tilly filmed her performance separately, while Eddie Murphy carried a glowing orb during scenes so the light would never reflect on the actors' faces. Smart, practical filmmaking. Eddie Murphy's casting was especially iconic. He once joked in stand up about never staying in a haunted house. His comedic skepticism grounds the film, making the supernatural elements feel even more fun. Terrence Stump's Ramsley, though, is the secret weapon. His performance is cold, bitter, and genuinely menacing. When his villainy is revealed, the film suddenly gets real, and his demise, a fiery dragon dragging him into hell. Eerily similar to Judge Frollo's fall in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Subtle? No. Effective? Absolutely. The singing bus, voiced by the Dapper Dans, served as both comic relief and a ride homage. Fan fact, when Mancina mentioned he didn't like barbershop quartets, the singers followed him into a bathroom and started singing mid-stall. That's commitment. The film ends with when the Saints go marching in, reinforcing the New Orleans setting and sending the ghosts finally freed on their way to the afterlife. So why does a haunted mansion endure? Disney historian Jeff Baham points out something crucial. The kids who grew up watching this movie are now adults. See, Olivia, you're now an adult.
That's right.
And they're sharing it with their own kids. Removed from the weight of the 2003 expectations, the film gets to exist as what it always was, a spooky, stylish, slightly messy, but heartfelt Halloween movie. Not perfect, not revolutionary, but atmospheric, sincere, and clearly made by people who love the source material.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that about watching it with your kids. So I did just let Eiley watch it for the first time this year. She's been asking So I finally gave in. We fast forwarded through a couple parts that are a little scary, but for the most part, she watched it and she's like, "Yeah, that's a little creepy, especially the zombie part," which I specifically remember when we saw this in the theater, two things that really stood out to me. So I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I remember going to see this movie, like you said, opening weekend, I'm pretty sure, over Thanksgiving. And Pirates had come out a few months before. It came out in the summer of 2003, and that was a major unexpected hit. I mean, that movie blew everything out of the water, everyone's expectations, including the own actors. I know there's a famous interview of Keira Knightley saying, like, "Oh, I'm in some pirate movie." She did not know it was going to blow up like that. And it was so good. And then we came to see Haunted Mansion. And I remember leaving thinking, like, okay, that was cool, but it definitely wasn't Pirates cool. But I also remember being super scared by, in the very beginning, the boys walking up to the house and that ghost face pops out. That scared the tar out of me. And the zombies, even I was older. I mean, I was like 10 and a half when this came out, and I was still freaked out by those zombies. So that's the part that got Eiley for sure. She's like, "I don't like those zombies. I don't remember that in the ride." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're not in the they're not in the ride." But I did like the scenery. I think I talked about this a few episodes again too, but I remember being like, "This isn't the Haunted Mansion. This looks nothing like the Disney World version," but it does look very much like the Disneyland version. It was a little bit more dilapidated and run down than Disneyland's version looks. But that's kind of what I remember about going to see it, was thinking it was good, liking it, but not thinking it was as good as Pirates. So what do you kind of remember? Anything else specific about going to see this?
Well, I was excited to see it, and I just liked all the parts that kind of had the right elements to it, right?
Yeah.
The singing bus, the ballroom scene, the graveyard, the different things that happen in the graveyard. Um, I was just all looking for that. All the little, it's not really Easter eggs. They're right there in your face, right? So it's like and kind of like when I watched Pirates the same way. In that first movie, they had all these little nods to the ride.
Yeah.
All the way through the darn thing, it was pretty cool. And of course, the story with Pirates, and I'm sure that's a movie we'll talk about at some point too. Um,
Yeah.
the whole story with Pirates is that the story could just keep going and going, and it did, right? It had like what, seven, I think seven
Yeah,
movies,
I'm trying to remember. It
so
had a
six
lot.
or six or seven, yeah. There was a bunch, and yeah. So anyway, I do remember going and taking you guys, and I think we all kind of walked out like, oh, that was a cool movie, but you know, Pirates definitely came along at the same time, and as you said, blew it out of the water, no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Do you think this movie would have been better or worse if Eddie Murphy wasn't the lead? It sounds like maybe a different person would have fit better, potentially.
Yeah, again, I have nothing against Eddie Murphy. I think he's funny. He was a little,
Quirky,
well, his jokes in the '80s, he was pretty rough. I
raunchy.
mean, it was
Yeah, uh-huh.
yeah, not really
Not
my style of
clean.
comedian. That's just me. But he is pretty darn funny. And Saturday Night Live, he was great. I had no problem with Eddie Murphy. He was great. But I just, for some reason, I just thought they could that did worked it with somebody a little bit different. I don't know who that would be, but that was just my own feeling. I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed having Eddie Murphy in the movie. So
Yeah, I thought he was funny. I do think when we kind of get into in a minute comparing the two movies that are out, it definitely brought the mood not so scary and creepy, but some of the jokes and like even just yeah, certain parts that you're just like, okay, that was a little unnecessary, or like I don't know that you needed that there, or some of his jokes like fell a little flat. But yeah, I thought he was fine. I guess as a kid, I didn't really know any difference. I didn't know Eddie Murphy from anything except for Dr. Dolittle, I think, and Daddy Daycare maybe. That's like the only movies I ever saw with him in it because everything else was inappropriate.
right.
So yeah, that's just not somebody that I was like as familiar with back then. There was a really cool thing that I know some people have heard of and remember, and some people have no clue that it existed. And that is at Hollywood Studios. At the time, it was Disney Studios or Disney's Hollywood Studios. It was the set from the movie was actually over in the parks, and it was called The Making of the Haunted Mansion Movie. It was a temporary walkthrough attraction at Disney MGM Studios at the time. Obviously, now that's called Disney Hollywood Studios. And it was created to promote the film. So it was brought there I think the summer before the film came out and then kind of stayed through after the film was there, located an animation courtyard right next door to One Man's Dream. I believe now that's where the Little Mermaid meet and greet is for the live action Little Mermaid. And the exhibit gave guests a behind the scenes look at how the classic Disney Parks attraction was adapted for the big screen. Upon entering the building, you passed through this photo gallery, which had all these different pictures from the film's production. Then you were seated for a 15-minute little featurette featuring clips from the movie and some behind the scenes footage. After the presentation, this was the coolest part by far. Guests could freely explore the interior exhibit space, which displayed actual sets, props, and production elements used in the making of the film. You could not take pictures in the exhibit, but maybe we broke that rule. Dad will tell that story in a minute. And the making of the Haunted Mansion movie permanently closed May 1st, 2004, about 6 months after the film's theatrical release, and kind of served its purpose as a limited time promotional experience before it changed over to, I believe, right after this was Chronicles of Narnia. I'll have to look up the date of that, the first movie. And then eventually went to Prince Caspian, the second movie of that. So, what do you remember about this attraction back in the day? It was one we went to a couple of times, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, because we were at Disney all the time,
Yeah.
back in the day, right? Yeah, I thought it was great to go inside and look around. I really enjoy it, like you, the behind the scenes, seeing how they make things, and to see the props at the end. We walk onto this big room and there's different props. I can't remember everything that was exactly there, but I remember they said I remember having my camera with me. I don't think it was a camera phone, but back then they weren't very good. It was I probably had my camera with me, and the cast member was saying, "No, no, no photography, can't film anything in here." And everyone was kind of leaving, walking out. I said, "Man, I just said something like, well, I really wish I could take a picture of this. This is really cool." He says, "Hey, after everybody was out, okay, go over there and take a few pictures, and all right, just don't tell anybody." And then we
Yeah.
took a few pictures and we left.
Yeah.
Where those pictures went, I have no idea because I
I
don't.
want to say this was like an old Kodak, like wind it up and click
It could have
camera.
been it could have been
And
lost
I
in
think
some
they did
shoebox up in my closet. I don't know.
maybe. I can't remember if they even turned out because it was so dark in there. I definitely remember taking them and being
Yeah,
like, "Ooh,
yeah,
we get to do something special."
right. Yeah, we're right. Yeah, like we're breaking the rules here. But the cast
Yeah.
member let us do it. We weren't doing anything we weren't supposed to be doing, but he allowed us to. We did, and I think you're right. I think we might have developed them, and they were like really dark. Like, oh, that's kind of a letdown.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the set that was there was the ballroom set where like the
Yes.
long dining table,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yes. I
Okay.
believe so. I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
yeah,
cool.
that's our crazy story there. That's again, I don't think the pictures ever really turned out very well. And maybe I vague memory of maybe we did develop them and they were too dark or something like, oh man,
Yeah.
it was back in the day when that's the way kind of it was done. Digital stuff it was already out, but it wasn't. Not everybody had it, especially on their phone, like they do today, of course.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Jumping over to the 2023 version of the Haunted Mansion movie, after the mixed reception of the Eddie Murphy led 2003 film, Disney spent nearly 2 decades trying to crack that code again. At one point, Guillermo del Toro was attached, sparking hopes of a darker Gothic take that many fans felt the ride deserved. That version never materialized, but in 2023, Disney finally opened the doors once more with a brand new adaptation directed by Justin Simeon and written by Katie DePaul. So the big question was obvious. Was this the Haunted Mansion movie fans have been waiting for? Justin Simeon, best known for Dear White People and Bad Hair. I'm sorry, guys, I have no idea what those movies were.
I don't either.
Approached Haunted Mansion with a clear mission: make it feel like the ride. I wanted everything to feel as it came right off the attraction, Simeon said, and that intent is immediately visible. Production designer Darren Guilford filled the mansion with obsessive detail, from demonic candlesticks to ornate wallpaper to busts that looked like they might start singing at any moment. The cast felt it too. You just felt like this really feels haunted, said Lakeith Stanfield. His first name is Lakeith. I wonder if he is
Like,
like French Canadian or something.
I don't
Who
know.
plays Ben and a paranormal tour guide, haunted in more ways than one. Simeon also emphasized ensemble storytelling, which mirrors the ride itself. Guests don't follow one hero so much as stumble into a shared supernatural experience.
The story takes place in New Orleans, often called the haunted capital of the United States, a perfect fit for the attraction's lore. When we meet Ben Matthias, an astrophysicist turned ghost tour guide whose life has collapsed after the death of his wife, Alyssa. Once a man of science, Ben now walks through life emotionally hollow, insisting ghosts aren't real, even as he profits off ghost tours. Enter Gabby, a widowed doctor, played by Rosario Dawson, and her son Travis, who have just moved into the infamous Gracie Manor, with dreams of turning it into a bed and breakfast. Those dreams last about 5 minutes before the chairs move on their own and ghosts make themselves known. They flee, they return, because as they learn quickly, once you enter the mansion, the ghosts follow you home. Gabby hires Father Kent, played by Owen Wilson, to exorcise the mansion. The exorcism fails spectacularly, and Kent himself becomes haunted, forcing him to stay. Kent then recruits Ben, who has invented a camera designed to detect dark matter. Ben doesn't believe in ghosts, but money talks. He visits the mansion, finding nothing, and goes home. That night, a ghost mariner follows him back, which answers the question once and for all. Now trapped by the mansion's rules, Ben joins Gabby, Travis, and Kent as they investigate why the house won't let them go and what it wants from them. To crack the mystery, the group brings in reinforcements: Harriet, a psychic played by Tiffany Haddish, and Bruce Davis, a haunted house historian played by Danny DeVito. Together, they uncover the tragic history of William Gracie, the mansion's original owner. After the death of his wife, Gracie enlisted the legendary Madame Leota, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, to contact her spirit. Instead, seance after seance unleashes hundreds of ghosts into the mansion. Worse still, an evil presence manipulated Gracie into taking his own life and trapped Leota inside her crystal ball, leaving the mansion cursed and overcrowded with spirits. That evil presence turns out to be a familiar face for ride fans. The villain of the film is Alistair Crump, known as the Hatbox Ghost, voiced by Jared Leto. Crump was a wealthy tycoon with a cruel past, rumored to have murdered socialites before being beheaded by his servants. His spirit now controls the mansion, needing one final ghost, the 1000th, to complete a ritual that will free him from the house forever. To stop him, the group must find an object that Crump owned in his life, his hat. This leads to a side quest at Crump Manor, complete with tour guides played by Dan Levy and Winona Ryder, and eventually to an underground chamber containing Crump's buried crimes.
It's spooky, ambitious, and admittedly a bit convoluted. This is where reactions to the film tend to split. On one hand, Haunted Mansion 2023 is undeniably more atmospheric and scarier than the 2003 version. It earned a PG-13 rating after all. The visual effects range from genuinely impressive to standard blockbuster fare, and the ride references are plentiful and lovingly placed. On the other hand, the story juggles a lot. Ben's grief, Gabby and Travis's family arc, Gracie's tragedy, Crump's revenge plot, Madame Leota's imprisonment. At times, it feels like two movies are stitched together. Gracie's story, in particular, is introduced with emotional weight, but never fully resolved, which is ironic given how central it was in the 2003 film. Still, the performances really hold it together. Chase W. Dillon as Travis is a standout, grounded, emotional, and surprisingly nuanced. Lakeith Stanfield delivers a restrained performance that sells Ben's grief, while Jared Leto's vocal work as a Hatbox Ghost is genuinely menacing. Danny DeVito and Tiffany Haddish largely play heightened versions of themselves. That's not necessarily a flaw. It fits the tone. And Owen Wilson, turns out his priest isn't actually a priest at all, but a Halloween supply store worker who eventually decides to become a real one, only in a Disney movie.
Haunted Mansion premiered at Disneyland on July 15th, 2023, and hit theaters July 28th. Critics were missed, and financially, the film struggled, grossing $118 million worldwide against a $150 million budget. Woof. Still, much like its 2003 predecessor, this feels like a movie that might age better than its opening weekend suggested. It clearly understands the ride, it respects the history, and it isn't afraid to let sadness coexist with humor. So, Dad, I know you saw this movie, and for the most part, you enjoyed it, right? So, what would you say they kind of got right in this movie or what kind of missed the mark for you?
Well, this just came out in 2023, so it's not like the 2003 version, which is I saw that a while ago. I do have the DVD, but the 2023 version, from what I can recall, as they said in the write up, it really for a haunted mansion fan, it really hits home the way they brought the attraction into the movie in so many ways, right? But it does seem to just jump around a lot. It's kind of hard sometimes almost to stay with it. Um,
Yeah.
you know, if I would have started watching this like at 10 o'clock at night, I'm sure I would have been asleep at 10:30. Not because it was boring, but it would just if I always that always happens to me when I have trouble like following a movie, and this one seems to jump around a lot. But I thought the nod to the attraction itself was better than the 2003 version. 2003 version was a little more whimsical, a little funny, had some scary parts, but the 2023 version to me was definitely more scary by
I
far. So
I definitely agree. I definitely agree that it was more scary and it was definitely meant to be. These little side quests that they kind of went off on were really distracting. And I'm gonna be honest, it took me about 3 or 4 times to actually make it all the way through this movie. I still don't think I've seen it from beginning to end in one piece because, like you said, I do fall asleep even starting it at 8 o'clock. So I just, yeah, have struggled to stay awake and have it keep my attention. Not that it's bad, like you said, it's just a lot going on. And, Maddie's like, all right, let's sit down and watch this movie in the dark. And I'm like out in 5 minutes in general. So this one just didn't hold my attention quite as much. I like the idea of the story. I've probably seen the first 20 minutes of this movie, again, all four of those times, but I did finally make it all the way through. I think it's worth watching and it definitely gives a lot of good nods, but it almost should have been split into like two parts or something and or like done one part of the movie where it follows this and then another part of the movie where it follows that because it's just a lot. It has a really star-studded cast. There's a lot of huge names that we listed, but I don't know that I necessarily loved their choices for some of the people. Like, I know Jamie Lee Curtis was like a big name to put as Madame Leota, but to me, she didn't really fit super well. Like, I actually thought there could have been a better choice. I think the lady in the original 2003 movie actually fit the look of her better. Maybe. I don't know. I just don't feel like Jamie Lee Curtis was necessarily the right choice. And same with Jared Leto. I don't know if you know who he is, Deb. He's like a from the band 30 Seconds to Mars. He's a singer and he's been in all these movies lately. That's like kind of he does movies on the side. And I don't know, like he's fine. I think Maddie liked that he was in the movie, but he's definitely not my choice for the Hatbox Ghost. So there actually was something that I found really cool doing research on the Haunted Mansion as well that I wanted to briefly touch on. And that was Haunted Mansion comic books. So the first one, there's been a few different versions of the comics. And the first one was back in October 2005. Slave Labor Graphics launched a bi-monthly comic book series inspired by the Disneyland classic attraction, the Haunted Mansion. Each issue featured 4 to 5 standalone stories alongside chapters of an ongoing narrative titled Mystery of the Mains, which explored the life and history of Master Gracie. With exception of issue number 3, all covers were illustrated by Roman Dirge. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. Years later, additional Haunted Mansion comics were published by other companies, and in March 2016, Marvel Comics released a separate, unrelated 5 issue miniseries under its Disney Kingdoms imprint. Written by Joshua Williamson and illustrated by Jorge and Coelho, and colored by Jean-Francois Beaulieu. Oh man, I'm butchering these names tonight. Sorry, guys. The series ran from March through July 2016, and the story follows Danny, a teenage boy who becomes trapped inside a mysterious mansion inhabited by 999 ghosts. An entirely separate graphic novel called The Haunted Mansion Frights of Fancy was published by IDW Publishing in August 2020, further expanding the attraction's presence in comic form. So, had you ever seen or heard of any of these comics, Dad?
again, I've never heard of any of this other than your great research. And I just pulled up on my phone on Amazon. They're showing some of the comic books on Amazon. You can actually still get reprints of them,
Oh, cool.
which is pretty cool. With the Roman Dirge as the artist. Yeah, they're not inexpensive. These aren't little dollar, $2 comic books like I bought when I was like 10 years old. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's pretty. I think it's great. Yeah, I as a kid, I it was in the comic books for a couple of years. We didn't have any haunted mansion comic books would have been great, but yeah, I think why not, right? They probably made some money doing it, and it'd be fun to take a peek at one.
Yeah, definitely would be fun to take a peek at one. I think they looked really cool when I was looking at them too. So, a couple of personal stories before we wrap up here about the Haunted Mansion. So, Dad, kind of tell what you remember about your original ride over in Disneyland, and then if you remember early rides when you first came over to Disney World, what are some of your favorite memories of this attraction?
Well, my first memory was in 1970 when our family went out to California from Michigan, a long station wagon ride, and that I talked about in many episodes ago. But
Hmm.
anyway, it was we spent one day at Disneyland, which was pretty common back then. A lot of people didn't go there and stay there, a week like my daughter would do, um, and Regan. But yeah, we went to Disneyland for a day, and the Haunted Mansion. Out of all the attractions we went to, that was, of course, the Haunted Mansion was one of the big e-ticket attractions. It was only open for a year, opened in '69. We were there in the summer of 1970, and so many parts of it I could still remember to this day. And I have not seen that attraction since then in Disneyland. I haven't been to Disneyland since then. So I remember getting a postcard from there with the haunted band playing. I guess they called it the Phantom Five, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
The Phantom Five band. Yeah, so there's just something about all that. I just thought it was so amazing. The ballroom scene, I remember it like it was yesterday, and this was many years ago. So yeah, I just have very fond memories of the original. And the one here, the first time I went back to the one here, the first time I saw the one here was in 1973. Went as a family. I think I was in junior high at the time, and we went down during our floor. My dad was a teacher. We went down during spring break, and anyway, went to Walt Disney World. It opened in '71. We were there in '73, and I made sure I got to the Haunted Mansion here. And I was like the Haunted Mansion as far as the exterior of ours, so much more than the plantation style in Disneyland. I think our Haunted Mansion, personally, and from other accounts that people have been to Disneyland many times, like ours better. For I won't get into all the reasons, but they like, and I liked this one actually better too. So yeah, without belaboring the point, I remember going there, and I think the time we went, then it was a rainy. For some reason, it was a rainy night. Kind of rare getting a lot of rain at that time of year in Florida, but it was a rainy night, and so we went to the Haunted Mansion. It was dark. It was raining, and it was cool. I remember going with my
Yeah.
sisters, and we were all like, "Wow, look at the first time we've seen the Haunted Mansion in Florida." And it was perfect. It was like, wow. Of course, it was still real warm and everything, so you're not like freezing to death. But yeah, just real fond memories of going to the one here, and I still every time I go to the Magic Kingdom, I go on that attraction and I go on Pirates, and unless the line is ridiculously long, and make sure I always get on those two attractions. But yeah, Haunted Mansion will always be my favorite.
Yeah, I definitely love the Haunted Mansion, and I do remember as a kid, I don't remember necessarily the first time going on it. It was never one that I was necessarily scared of, and same for Regan as being a more sensitive kid to things like that. He was never really scared of it either. Luckily, my kids are both not scared of it. We kind of just present it as, oh, it's these silly ghosts, and it's can be a little spooky, but it's silly and it's fun, and they've always enjoyed going on it. So I do remember going on it for the first time at Disneyland and just being blown away by the, exterior and then getting in it and seeing how different it was. And that was 2018 when we went to Disneyland for the first time. And then just going again last summer, getting to see the Haunted Mansion again. I was still just like, wow, there was just so much to look at that is different. And the order of things is different. The way the ride is different. So it was very cool to compare and contrast. I think their version is very cool. I obviously love the Disney World version because that's the version I grew up on, and it's one that we rarely miss. So we almost always try to go when we're at the Magic Kingdom. The only reason we wouldn't is if the line is ridiculously long, but it's one that we'll wait 30 minutes for because we like it that much. And now with the new interactive part of the queue, it keeps you pretty entertained. So yeah, I also wanted you to tell the story about how you basically willed Memento Mori, the gift shop, into existence because a long time ago when the we first started going to Disney more often, there was not that gift shop there. So give a little bit of insight into the gift shop.
Well, every time we walked out of the Haunted Mansion, there was a kiosk or a
Hmm.
cart, right? That was
Outdoor.
there outside, about, I don't know, 6 foot long by 4 foot wide. It was a cart with all the merchandise hanging on it. And there was never any much of anything, some t-shirts, some pins,
Hmm.
some light up, whatever that Regan probably wanted to get, because I always wanted to get some light up something, right? To
Yeah.
otherwise it'd throw a fit. Sorry, Regan, but that was kind of the way it was when we were little. But and I always thought, why don't they have a store for the Haunted Mansion, just for the Haunted Mansion merchandise? This is ridiculous. I think I said that every time I walked out with you guys, like, this is crazy. And of course, the other thing I wanted them to have, and I almost got there, was a restaurant, a really cool sit down restaurant. How cool would that be?
Yeah.
And maybe that will come still. Maybe in Villains Land or something, they'll throw something like that in there. Would that be cool?
It's been rumored, so I'm hoping.
So I'm hoping, yes. So yeah, so next thing you know, a number of years later, I don't know when Memento Mori opened. Do you know, Liv? Was it like
Oh, let me look.
2015, maybe 10 years ago now? Time goes so fast.
I think it was longer than that because we were living in Florida.
But I thought they did a great job with Memento Mori. It's fun to walk in there and see all the different things they have in there is amazing. And I know my wife and I got Ghost, kind of the cast member T-shirts we wore a few times to some of the Halloween parties. That are kind of fun. It's just it's a quick costume, but you throw it on. Hey, I got a costume. It's a T-shirt of the cast, what the cast members wear for the ladies and the men. It's I still have it in the closet. And I think I wore it once, right, to the party. And that was it. But anyway, yes, I think the store is great. And yeah, I guess if I complained, complained enough that listen, I highly doubt I had anything to do with it. But thank you for that.
I'm giving you credit for sure. So I actually just looked it up, and previously that store had been called the Yankee Trader, which I remember. And I think that
Yes,
was part of your frustration was like this Yankee Trader store was right there, full of expensive stuff that nobody bought. It was like fancy
candles,
dishes and candles.
all these candles. It smelled like a perfume factory when you went in there.
Yeah. And that Yankee Trader store opened September 1973 and closed July 27th, 2014. The store
Wow.
reopened as Memento Mori on October 6th, 2014. So you're right, about 10 years. It's like 12
Okay.
years, whatever, 10,
Yeah.
10 years or so. So yeah, that's how long it's been there. So that was the year before we moved because I do remember it being there. I guess that's right about when we had our annual passes and we were going a decent amount and that store opened. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, my dad will be so happy because you think about it, and the rest of the major attractions have a gift shop at the exit of the ride inside. So, like, Pirates has a massive gift shop.
Sure. Sure.
Space Mountain even has a pretty decent gift shop. I guess Big Thunder does not. Splash does when you got off. Now it's Tiana's, but the gift shop when you walk out. So it was very surprising for such an iconic attraction to take that long to get a big gift shop. And now that we're talking about this, I can't remember at Disneyland if they have a big gift shop or not. I'm gonna look when
I
I'm
think they've
there.
added one recently, and
Okay.
people say it doesn't really fit right as far as the look of it. You'll have to
Okay.
check it out when you're there. Let me know. But I remember my random land guy, Justin Scar, that I watch on YouTube all the time, that goes all over the country. But he's a big Disney guy, lives right outside of Disneyland, grew up right next to Disneyland. And he was had it on one of his videos a couple of years ago saying, this is nice, but it doesn't really fit. But it's kind of like
Okay.
Memento Mori type of store. You'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I guess by the time this episode comes out, we'll have already been, but I'll let y'all know in a future episode what I thought of that store. Okay, cool. Yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. So, to wrap this up, the Haunted Mansion's history reflects Disney's commitment to storytelling and innovation, making it a timeless attraction that captivates audiences of all ages. Its unique design, engaging narratives, and cultural significance ensure its place in the hearts of Disney fans worldwide. Beyond the ride itself, the Haunted Mansion has had a surprisingly massive cultural footprint. It helped redefine what a family friendly haunted attraction could be, inspired generations of Halloween experiences, and arguably created one of the earliest ride based fandoms where fans built lore, backstories, and theories long before social media existed. It's also one of Disney's most merchandised attractions, a staple of theme park music culture thanks to Grim Grinning Ghosts, and one of the first mainstream pieces of family entertainment to balance humor, melancholy, and mortality in a way that felt both spooky and sincere. In many ways, the Haunted Mansion didn't just influence theme parks, it helped shape how we experience spooky storytelling altogether. What do you think keeps people coming back to the Haunted Mansion decade after decade? Is it nostalgia, craftsmanship, or the fact that you can really find something new every single time you ride, that re-rideability factor?
Well, for I think for a lot of people, nostalgia plays a part. I know for me it does. I think it's all three of them. If you think about it, it was an attraction that was done right the first time. Sure, they've made a little adjustments here and there. They've tried to plus it, as Walt used to say. They plus something, make it better. Take something, make it better. And so they've done some. They definitely have done some things that have made it better. Technology has made it more fun, and it improved a lot of different things like the hitchhiking ghost and so on. So I just think they did it right the first time, and it was an e-ticket ride, much like Pirates. I don't. I would be surprised if either one of those attractions ever goes away. I think
Oh,
it's
I don't
you
think
know
they could.
they can get rid of Mr. Toad and they can get rid of Snow White's Scary Adventures, and which I wish to still have those too at Disney World, but they don't. But those are two I think they just could never touch. They might keep making them better. That's great. Yeah, I just think it's all three of those things: nostalgia, craftsmanship, and you do notice something every time if you look and do some research and things we've talked about on this podcast to look for. Things I just never knew, and I've been on the ride easily 100 times, right? Easily. So
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, everybody listening learned something new about this attraction here too. Do you think Walt would approve of how much lore has been added over the years?
absolutely, he wanted Disney World. He said Disney World or Disneyland will always be in a state of change. It'll always be growing, and he always wanted things to be, changed around and improved. And that was he didn't want to stay stagnant because people then eventually won't keep coming back, and he kind of knew
Hmm.
that he had to keep everything fresh. So, yeah, I'm sure he would think it was great the way that's all the lore has grown and how much the attraction's loved.
I agree. So, our Would You Rather for this week came from our friend Katrina over on Instagram. And her question was, would you rather be trapped in the stretching room for an hour or get stuck in the graveyard for an hour? I definitely know my answer. What do you think, Dad?
Get me stuck in the graveyard.
Yeah, yeah. I 100% agree. I definitely think there's just so much to look at, like we were just talking about, something new to see almost every time you go. And the stretching room creeps me out a bit, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm totally cool to get stuck in the graveyard. And that's from our friend Katrina. Her handle is Magical Travel with Katrina. She's a great fan. She is one of our free Patreon members. We super appreciate her. So thanks, Katrina, for sending in that question. So, this attraction has followed us through multiple parks, multiple generations, and multiple interpretations. Some beloved, some debated, all part of the mansion's ever growing legend. From subtle gags and tragic backstories to bold overlays and big screen adaptations, the Haunted Mansion has proven that it just doesn't just endure, it adapts. And maybe that is part of the real magic. The ghosts don't change because they have to. They change because new guests keep showing up, ready to see the mansion through fresh eyes. And somehow, whether it's your first ride or your 100th, it always finds a way to welcome you in. So thank you for joining us on this journey through the halls, the graveyards, the ballrooms, and the lore. We hope that you've enjoyed revisiting or discovering the stories that make this attraction just so special. And if you hear something creeping up behind you, remember, there's always room for one more. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/SoarinAroundWDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.